It's College Football Friday, or at least that's what I'm calling this thing. We got some big games coming on tomorrow. We got a few games tonight. I want to talk about that and more. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. I am Brian. How I said that sounded a little too excited, but I am glad you're here. Hope you'll subscribe. It's free. It's a great way to support the channel if you like what I'm doing. I'm just hanging out here in my bonus room doing my thing. And I hope you'll drop a line and let me know that you are here. Now, last week was Week 1 for us Clemson fans. We can remember it, try not to remember what happened last week. I'm looking over here like that. Paul's going to start giving me explanations, but that would make for an interesting video. But this is actually the third week of college football. Week 0, 2 weeks ago, we saw Georgia Tech beat Florida State. We thought it was an upset. And then this past Monday, we saw BC go to Tallahassee and beat Florida State. So there's that. We know what happened again with the Tigers. We also saw some teams struggle. Oregon struggled with Idaho. Yeah, Idaho. By the way, there is a play going around Instagram. It's a great video of a play that that Idaho called against Oregon. It was an offensive play. And I thought that one play had more creativity in it than us Clemson fans have seen in the past 3 years. We have not seen a play that creative in quite a while, maybe even longer, probably 4 years. But yeah, there were some teams who struggled. There were teams who came out and absolutely took care of business, Tennessee being one of them. You could say, well, they were playing a terrible FBS school, and they ran up the score and fill in the blank with all of these other excuses or truths. At the same time, you can turn around and look at NC State. Going into the fourth quarter, they were down 21-17 to a lowly FCS school. Talk about those two teams playing here in just a moment. And I'll get to the schedule now. Now, I'm going to start off with tonight. Tonight, there's really no big games going on this evening. But if you want to watch college football on a Friday night, maybe you're not into the whole high school football thing. For me, it's kind of who's playing. Who's playing in high school football. I used to go to high school football games a lot, many years ago. But, considering that I have an 18-year-old and an 8-year-old, I really have more important things to do than... I'm not degrading high school football whatsoever. Not whatsoever. It's very important. It's the lifeline of college football. Still, even with the portal, it's still the lifeline. So, it's just, I just don't go out into high school football games anymore. So tonight, if you want to watch a game in the comfort of your home, or maybe you're having to work and you have your phone out and you want to watch some games, BYU plays at SMU tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN. That's an interesting game. I haven't looked at the line for that one, but I can tell you that I really don't know who to take for this particular game. And the reason I say that is because SMU has not looked impressive. BYU, what is BYU going to do? There's times that I think, oh, BYU is going to do great. They're going to do wonderful. And then they go out and they lay a golden turd. And so you're just kind of left there wondering. So that would be a good game to check out based out of boredom. Clearly out of boredom. But that game is coming on tonight. Also tonight, you have Western Illinois at Indiana. And then you have Duke at Northwestern. Now, this would be great if this was some type of spelling bee. This would be great if this game was not really a game. It was more about, SAT scores, maybe, MBA, what is that? I can't remember. GMAT scores. This would be a good one. But for football, I just don't know. And I also think that Northwestern's playing at that makeshift field right now, while their other field is being built or revamped or whatever it is. That would be cool to see. I might tune in just for that. It's 9 o'clock on FS1. So let's get into tomorrow's games and let's talk about the big games that actually will be going on. And for some reason, I don't know what the deal is, but ESPN will not continue to stay open. For some reason, it always goes to this weird channel that's trying to get me to buy AT&T. I have no clue what that is. But tomorrow at 12 o'clock on Fox, the Texas Longhorns play at Michigan. And that's 12 o'clock right off the bat. I think that's the highest rated game between two opponents tomorrow. So it gets underway right off the bat, 12 o'clock Fox. And right now, Texas is a 7-point favorite. Texas is a 7-point favorite, and I'm actually shocked. I'm actually shocked to a point, but at the same time, I'm not shocked. Michigan lost a lot. Michigan's head coach is gone. And let's go ahead for a third time. Michigan does not have. They have a lot of problems. That's all I'm going to say. That is not a peaceful place to be. And so for me, I look at this game and there's a part of me that totally understands why it's a 7-point favorite. There's a part of me that says I wouldn't be shocked if Texas was a 10-point favorite, maybe 10 to 14 points. I'm not saying that Michigan is barren and that they don't have players. But I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. With all of that stuff swimming around the program, I mean, it's circling like a shark. You're waiting for the boot to drop any moment. You have the Netflix special that's going on. It's just, I mean, to me, it would be very difficult to keep their mind on the, on the prize. So let's talk a little bit about Texas. Guys, ESPN is doing something weird on my side. It's really, really odd. As I'm trying to pull up this GameCast for Texas and Michigan, I'm trying to pull this up. Y'all please forgive me. I'm sorry for stumbling around with my words here, but I did not expect ESPN to give me such a problem. Let me give you just some stats going into this game. You know me, I don't like to just sit around and read stats all the time. You can go look those up on your own. But got some of you in here. I'll say hello in just a moment. Coming into this game, both teams are 1-0. Texas had 355 average passing yards last week, 190 on the ground, 545 overall. Michigan, on the other hand, they had 121 passing yards, 148 yards on the ground, 269 overall yards. So, you know, if you look at Michigan, and I know it's home. I know it's going to be a tough game. I know they played Fresno this past week, 130-10, but at the same time, I mean, I just think Texas is too much. I'm shocked that it's only a 7-point spread. If I would, I mean, I just think that Quinn Ewers is he's impressive. And the leadership is continued on this side. What I mean by that is you have Michigan losing their championship quarterback. No matter what you think about McCarthy, he was a guy that's been, running things. On the other hand, you got a guy who got Texas to the playoff the first time they were on the big stage in many, many years. I just think that Texas is going to be a little too much. I definitely believe a 7-point win, maybe 10-point win. Could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but I just see Texas as being too strong, too strong in this game. Let's move on to NC State and Tennessee. That game will be played in Charlotte tomorrow night at I believe 7 o'clock. I had my preview yesterday of the game, and I had someone say, I believe that too many people are praising Nico from Tennessee a little too much. By the way, the Tennessee NC State game 7:30 on ABC tomorrow night. But I've heard people say, "Hey, I think that too many people are praising this guy a little too quick. He just went out and played at FCS school and he beat the trash out of him." So, Brian, why are you looking at NC State and proclaiming that Nico's going to have a big game against them? I'll tell you why. I believe that NC State's defense is that bad. I know they have a couple of good players here or there. I want to say that their best cornerback did not play against Western Carolina. But let's take another team and run parallel to NC State. We saw in week 0 how Georgia Tech really dominated Florida State when it came to the their offensive side of the ball, pushing around Florida State's defense. We saw Florida State's defensive line get shoved around, there was some confusion here and there. And we thought, okay, maybe Georgia Tech just played a really good game, but you turn around and you watch that game Monday night with Boston College, and you saw the same thing. Now, NC State's only played one ball game. But that one ball game, there was similar dominance that Western Carolina showed. At least Georgia Tech was, they're a D1 school. They're slowly getting better. Brent Key's doing a good job. But this is no offense to the Catamounts from Western Carolina. But on paper, in theory, Western Carolina should not go into Carter Finley Stadium, a place that's much more difficult to play than what a lot of people realizes. They've got a good environment there. And they went in and they were not intimidated at all. And if you see the score of 38-21, you're like, well, Brian, NC State won by 17. Yeah, going into that fourth quarter, they were down 21-17 to an FCS school who had been pushing them around. And when I think about the very next week, you have to turn around and play Tennessee. The things that I saw with NC State's defense is what's making me believe that Tennessee, not that Nico has ascended the mountain and that he has no room for growth. The guy can play. The guy, the way he throws the football and the intensity and the focus and the precision that he's throwing the football, I'm telling you, it's something that can't be taught immediately. And in a lot of cases, maybe not be taught. But Nico came in, he played quite well. And that guy, with the talent that he has around him, I mean, he has Brew McCoy. He has Squirrel White. He has Sampson at running back. I mean, he has talent here. He has more players than that on the team. Thornton, he had over 100 yards receiving. But he has the tools around him to go in and make this game against NC State very difficult for them to win. I do believe that NC State's offense is going to have success. I believe that they're going to have success, especially against the secondary of Tennessee, unless something happens. Now, that front seven of Tennessee is going to present, they're going to present some different looks to Grayson McCall. Grayson McCall going into his second game. They raided the portal. They have some talent there. I think Tennessee overall man-to-man has more talent across the board on the offensive side of the football. But NC State, they do have a quarterback who has been around. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what he's doing. He's one of my personal favorites. I just think NC State's defense is that bad. Could be wrong, but I just don't see this. I just don't see this. And I want to say Tennessee is a 9-point favorite going into this game. They're a 9-point favorite going into this game. So that's a big game for you to check out. I'm going to get into the comments section, say hello to a couple of people. SOTD, hey friend, you still have your other channel? Yes, I do. Yes, yes, I do. I have the Bobby Durkins channel. So if you just type in Bobby Durkins, Dirkens, my channel will pull up. I do some videos here and there. I wanted to do more, and it's just, I don't know. It's transparently, it's kind of easier to do this than it is to be Durkins. I know that sounds crazy. Brian W. asks, when is Durkins coming back? Hey, trying to get more out there, but hey, it is what it is. Dogs rolling loud. Yo, Sepal, go Dogs. Good to see you. Howdy. I'm predicting Clemson loses every game. That way I'm happy when they win and not sad when they lose. Deep breath. Go Tigers. Parker Henderson, yeah, man. You know, I'm going to do a video on the state of Clemson after this game because I think that especially if Clemson wins, a lot of people are going to forget last week, and they're just going to say that Georgia was, you know, Georgia's Georgia, and we just have to accept that that was a week one loss, but we're still in contention to get to the playoff. And I know a lot of people who are friends of mine who I like. I'm not going to, you know me, I'm not going to get personal over game, but I'm sorry. Last weekend was unacceptable, especially when you consider who Clemson is, who Clemson was, and how it just keeps doing this week in and week out. And I'm just, uh, I'm there's a lot of things I can say that I'm not. But Parker, thanks for supporting the channel. You see that symbol beside Parker's name? He supports the channel on a monthly basis. So he's either paying $3 or $5 per month supporting the channel. And Parker, I appreciate you supporting the channel, being a friend to the channel. And folks, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, there's a join button below the video. You may not see it if you're on an iPhone, but $3 or $5 per month. If anything, I hope you'll subscribe. It is free. Thanks, Parker, for supporting the channel. And I agree with you. I'm to the pessimistic side with that one. CW2, hook 'em. Cade, Club Sack, it's good to see you. Go Dogs. What you look to see improve from Clemson this week? Absolutely nothing. I think we're really getting. I tell you what, I'm looking forward to when it comes to our coaching staff. They're really good at offering excuses now. If they spent as much time focusing on offensive strategy as they do on providing pushback to the media and giving excuses of why things are going south, we'd have a championship football team. So I don't expect to see anything different from us. And I feel sorry for our defense because Clemson's defense was giving Georgia fits, but it went as just like I predicted for months. I mean, just month in, month out, day in, day out, video in, video out. Georgia is going to end up scoring because the offense is going to do nothing, while the defense, even though they're conditioned, they're going to get tired because that's what happens. So to answer your question, I don't look to see any improvement. I look to see Clemson start beating teams that they're supposed to beat, and then everybody's going to lie to themselves and say that it's fine and that everything's okay. That's what I expect. Hey, look, if you want to believe a lie, folks, go for it. Whatever makes you feel good. But I'm going to tell you this. I predicted that Georgia would win 24-10, 30-10. I'm on record on a couple of different shows saying that. It was even worse than what I thought. You might want to temper your expectations of the Tigers, and you might want to heed my warning that I just told you. Clemson's playing the ACC. Every time you think it can't get worse, it does. And the ACC is really bad, but it is so bad right now that Clemson could win a lot of games, and a lot of you will be fooled that they're actually getting better, and they're not. So I'm at work, but I'll still be listening. Good to see you, my friend. Corn Pop. Oh, Corn Pop. What a name. Daddy-O, good assistant coaches matter. I'll revise, good assistant coaches matter. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for dropping comments in here. I'm going to go back, quickly go over some games that are scheduled for this weekend. I would share my screen, but there's a video playing on the side, and it's from CBS Sports, and I will actually get a copyright strike, so I really don't feel like that. Quickly go through some games tomorrow that you may or may not care about. Arkansas and Oklahoma get together in Stillwater. Oklahoma State is a 10-point favorite. It's interesting to see how Arkansas is going to do. Now, some of you would be like, okay, they played a nobody school last week. And they ran up the score. But here's one of my theories in football, or one of the things that I consistently say. Beat a bad football team bad. Beat a bad team bad. Okay? What does that mean? If they're bad, they have no business competing with you. In fact, it's disrespectful for you to go out there and fart around. I'm not saying to call a timeout to you're up 50-0, there's 20 seconds left, you call a timeout to throw, another touchdown to rub it in. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about, you beat a bad team bad, and that's exactly what Arkansas did. They played a bad team, And with new, and this is just, I'm telling you, man, it's just whacked out. New offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, they put up a ton of points. I'm not saying that Arkansas is back and that they're great or anything, but it was impressive to see them score because we've seen Arkansas just absolutely drop the ball on games like that. So it'll be interesting to see if they are competitive going into Oklahoma State, Stillwater. So right now, Oklahoma State's a 10-point favorite. Georgia Tech and Syracuse, they get together tomorrow at 12 o'clock on the ACC network in Syracuse. Georgia Tech's ranked number 23. Go figure. They beat Florida State, obviously, in the very first game. Last week, they played a team that was 2 miles down the road from them, Georgia State, and they won pretty commandingly. Georgia State gave them a game early on, and then Tech just outmanned them. Georgia Tech's a 3-point favorite. This is the first real test that Fran Brown, new coach at Syracuse, he and Kyle McCord will have. This is very much a winnable game for Georgia Tech. I'm just kind of interested that they're only a 3-point favorite going in this game. That'll be a fun one to watch. If Georgia Tech pounds them or just wins in a dominant fashion, that'll be interesting as well. Kansas State goes to Tulane tomorrow at 12 o'clock on ESPN. Tulane, they're an 8.5-point dog. Now, remember, they lost their coach, Willie Fritz, I believe it is, to Houston. Kansas State comes in number 17. We've seen some improvements from them. And I think this is a game you got to keep your eyes on. I think Kansas State will end up pulling this game out, but don't count out Tulane. That would be a mistake. That would be a mistake. Georgia Bulldogs, they're a 54.5-point favorite over Tennessee Tech. So don't hold your breath on that one. California goes to Jordan-Hare. Yeah, I made sure I didn't say Jordan because God forbid I pronounce Jordan with the O. I just unleashed a whole lot of frenzy on myself from the Auburn fans. But Jordan-Hare host California. Both teams are 1-0. Auburn's a 12-point favorite. Hugh Freeze in his second year at Auburn. Be interesting to see what he does. I see them win this game. Vegas sees them winning this game. Let's see if they actually pull that game out. Going on down the line, Iowa State and Iowa play tomorrow. It's going to be in Iowa City at Kinnick Stadium. Iowa State is a 3-point underdog, but Iowa State has always found a way to win this game. They'll find a way to pull out the win. It's a very interesting game. And hey, here's the deal. These two teams playing early on, it's one of those rivalries that they just kind of go ahead and get it over with. And I don't know how many times Iowa State has ruined Iowa's party. We'll see if they do it again tomorrow, though. A 3-point differential, I don't really see that being anything to write home about or to see it as an upset. You have South Carolina and Kentucky getting together 3:30 tomorrow on ABC. Kentucky is a 9-point favorite. It's going to be at Kroger Field in Lexington. I watched the South Carolina game with my oldest. You know that I've told you he's a great kid, but the only bad thing about him is he's a Gamecock. I think it's just pure rebellion, and his grandfather had something to do with it. My father-in-law is a friend of mine, so I always pick at him about being a Gamecock. I always tell him he's the nicest Gamecock I've ever met in my life. And then followed by my son, because my son has followed that. Well, anyway, rebellion. There it is. It's rebellion. I watched that South Carolina game against Old Dominion. Take Clemson and South Carolina out of it. South Carolina's offensive line is quite terrible. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. You lost the playmaker. You've lost the playmakers of Xavier Legette, who's now with the Panthers. That guy could play football. And now you have Lenoris Sellers, who I think has a really good potential, but he's going to have to be developed. And South Carolina should have lost that game last week to Old Dominion, because Old Dominion, I want to say their quarterback turned the ball over 4 times. Had the guy just held on to one of those 4 turnovers, South Carolina loses its opener to Old Dominion. So it will be interesting to see Brock Vandagriff play against South Carolina tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and speed through a few more of these. Get back to the comments section just real quick. Tony B in here says, go Vols. I'm picking you guys to win tomorrow. Don't let me down. Please don't let me down. Somewhere Electric Light Orchestra is playing that song. I can hear it in the back of my head. For some of you are like, what? Just don't worry. Just don't worry about it. Virginia Tech plays Marshall tomorrow, 4:30 on the CW, right after a rerun of Gossip Girls. XOXO. Don't ask me how I know that. Virginia Tech coming off that embarrassing loss to Vanderbilt. They're a 20.5-point favorite over Marshall tomorrow. Marshall's 1-0. I don't know who they beat. They might have went and beat the Red Hat ladies of Idaho. I don't know, but it's quite interesting to see that they're not just an underdog, they're an almost basically a 3-touchdown underdog. That's kind of interesting to me, to say the least. East Carolina, Old Dominion, they get together tomorrow. You're like, why do you bring that up? Well, I just brought up Old Dominion just a second ago. Old Dominion's a 1.5-point favorite. That's interesting. Going on down to Funkyville, we have Kansas 1-0 playing Illinois 1-0 in Champaign. And Kansas is a 4.5-point favorite. Now, when you look at Kansas, I mean, you look no further than Jalen Daniels. And I want to say he's had some injury over the past few years, but when the guy has been on, he's been on. And as long as he stays healthy, and I don't know his current health, I'm assuming that he's not banged up, you're going to see this guy, I believe, come out, and I think he's going to help them, as long as he can stay healthy, win more flipping games. So I think that's Kansas's game. Even though it's a short spread, that's technically a toss-up, for me, that's Kansas's game to lose. Tomorrow, Florida might get its first win of the season, which I know it's only played 1 game, but they play Sanford. So everybody get ready for that game. I hear that DJ Lagway is going to be starting. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he's actually starting this game. He's actually starting this game tomorrow. So we'll see. They should win that game either way, but still. Also tomorrow at 7 o'clock ESPN, South Florida has to travel to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You remember last year, South Florida almost beat Alabama there at South Florida. Tyler Buckner, Notre Dame transfer, he went in, took Jalen Milroe's place. Things didn't go so well. Tyler Buckner is actually back at Notre Dame. I want to say he's playing wide receiver, or I don't know. He's back there. But Bama's a 30.5-point favorite. And I'm going to tell you this. Kalen DeBoer is going to make sure he beats, like I said earlier, bad team's bad. He's going to do his very best to ensure that no one believes for a second that the program has fell off because Nick Saban's not there. And I don't blame him if he goes after the biggest wins he possibly can against these guys, because he has to leave no doubt. He can't allow any doubt to seep into that fan base, but most importantly, his team, right down to his coaches, that Alabama has fell off. And so I expect them to not only win this game, I expect them to try to be brutal with this game as well. While I'm in here, I'm just going to tell you this. I'm looking for really, really late games too. I think it's always enjoyable. Like sometimes I'll go to bed a little earlier on Saturday nights because I play at my church. So I'll have to get up early. I'm a musician. Some of you know that. Some of you don't. It really doesn't matter. But I'll have to get up early the next morning. And sometimes I just can't sleep. That's just kind of how I am. And I'll wake up at like 1:30 and just look and see if there's a game still on TV. And I'm like, look, there's a game going on. Both the teams are terrible, but there's a game going on. I love it. I'm sorry, I'm weird. Hey, admitting it is the first step to recovery. There we go. Bill and Marge goes down to Coastal Carolina tomorrow night. No, William and Mary, they play at Coastal Carolina tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I am on Coastal Carolina's ticket email list, and they beat Jacksonville State so bad and ran up so many yards on them. I think it was like 550 yards or 515 yards, something like that, that I received an email last week for the North Carolina game. I mean, for the Coastal Carolina, William and Mary. Sorry, I looked at my phone because I saw something about Grayson McCall, and I was like, oh no, he's hurt and he's not playing. That changes everything. But it was just an ad for something. But yeah, that Coastal Carolina, they were selling tickets for $5.50 or $5.15 in honor of their offensive performance against Jacksonville State. That was hilarious. If I didn't have to play on Sunday, I might try to make that game, but I'm not going to be able to. Let's get to this one. Colorado and Nebraska plays tomorrow night, 7:30 on NBC. That's right, not just Notre Dame's on NBC. This part of this whole deal with the Big Ten and so on. But Colorado and Nebraska used to play the day after Thanksgiving, and they did that for a while. And the times that I can remember, Nebraska beat the crap out of them, except for a few times that, maybe Colorado had a really good team unexpectedly, but the vast majority of the time, it was Nebraska just beasting them. And that's because, especially in the 90s, Nebraska was just, good grief, what a pain. I believe that 95 Nebraska team might be the greatest team to ever play. I'm not basing that off of who was drafted. I'm basing that on their dominance on the field. I know that everybody says, well, based on draft, it's this team or that team. And hey, that's a great argument, especially if that's your team. I'm not going to take that from you. But that 95 Nebraska team was absolutely bonkers. But Nebraska's a 6.5-point favorite. We know Deion goes into this game, the chip on his shoulder. I think Matt Rowland made some comments last year or something. Here's the thing about this. Put all of whatever's going to go on social media and press conferences and all of this aside. I mean, Travis Hunter is really good. And there's a few players on that Colorado team that are good. But to me, Travis Hunter's the clear cut. Yes, he's incredible. I'm not ready to hand Shedeur the number 1 pick overall. I just wonder if Shedeur's last name was Smith or Jones or, Baklava or something like that. Would he still be rated as the over one, the top 3 draft pick? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, of my years of watching football, no, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. He would be a good football player, and I think he would stand a better chance if he didn't have that pressure on him. But it is what it is. Nebraska's a 6.5-point favorite. They have that Dylan, Raiola, something like that, who transferred, or he not transferred. When he was in high school, he was like the number 1 rated quarterback or something like that. Transferred from a school in Arizona to right outside of Georgia. He had committed to Georgia and at last second flipped to Nebraska. He has a family member on staff there at Nebraska. He's going to get the start that, to my knowledge, I think Nebraska actually could win this ball game. They're a 6.5-point favorite, and I think that Matt Rhule can actually coach football. And people can blame the Panthers on him, but I mean, tell me, except for a few seasons out of 30, how many times has the Panthers been that great? The correct answer is not that much. And it's not like he went up there and he messed up something great. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. Okay, it would be better for me if it was the day after Thanksgiving because I would have some nostalgia. But yeah, No, we're not going to get that. Houston playing at Oklahoma tomorrow. Oklahoma is a 28-point favorite. You have Brent Venables and his team in the SEC. Texas has all the attention of the new, between the two teams. And rightfully so. Texas went to the college football playoff. It was a very, very, close game. That was very entertaining with Washington. They're playing in the game tomorrow against Michigan. Both teams were in the college football playoff. One wins the national championship. Both are in the top 10. So it's easy for you to overlook Oklahoma at this point, but I think that could play in their favor. So we'll see. As I said, they're a 28-point favorite. Tomorrow night, I already did my preview for this game, but Clemson's still ranked number 25 after getting blown out by 31 points by the Georgia Bulldogs. In Atlanta, they're a 17-point favorite over Appalachian State. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock on the ACC network. And, I mean, the number one thing for Clemson to do in this game, just line up and run the football. Line up and run the football and try to get those freshman wide receivers some plays. And I'm sorry, I have to say this. I can't hold this in. If Clemson is going to start being creative tomorrow just because they lost by 31 to Georgia, that is poor judgment. That is a lack of judgment. And I don't know what's going on there. And if anybody wants to send me a message and tell me that, let the experts do what they do. Well, the experts lost by 31 points last week to a team that not too long ago we would have beat. Clemson would have beat them. And so it's just unreal to me how some people in the Clemson community are totally fine with what happened this past weekend. They kind of hate it, but overall, it's no biggie. It is biggie, and if you begin to panic once Clemson hits 7-5 and 6-6, which I think is very possible in the coming future, if something doesn't change, it is too late. Now is the time to be upset. Last year was the time to be upset. The year before that was the time to be upset. So some of you are still celebrating the 18 championship, and that was 6 years ago. It's time to get up with the times. It's time to find out that you don't have to have dial-up for your internet service. You don't have to have cable. You could have YouTube TV or Hulu or Sling or something like that. You're going to be shocked when you find out that there's this thing called Bluetooth. Yeah, join us with the times. Clemson's not where they were at. And Appalachian State, they have a history for upsetting teams. I just don't think it's going to happen tomorrow night. So let's move on. Oregon, Boise State, 10 p.m. Oh, look, it's a 10 p.m. game. It's going to be on Peacocks in Eugene, Oregon. Oregon, an 18.5-point favorite. They played so poorly against Idaho that they dropped by 4 spots in the rankings. This will be interesting to see how this game goes. Does Boise State shock them? We will see. Texas Tech and Washington State gets together, I want to say 10 o'clock tomorrow night on Fox. There is not I'm not seeing a line on this one, but who knows with that one? Who absolutely knows with that one? Mississippi State travels to Tempe, Arizona to play Arizona State. Arizona State's a 5.5-point favorite. It's kind of funny. It's interesting. And then Southern Cal coming off of that really fun game to watch. That LSU game, I'm not predicting either team is great or bad or whatever. But that was a fun game to watch. Southern Cal looked pretty solid. In that game. Had some great passes. Unbelievable receptions. They're a 28.5-point favorite over Utah State. Of course, they should be. Also, last but not least, and I probably missed a couple of games here, but Liberty, the Fighting Jamie Chadwells, are playing New Mexico State tomorrow. They're a 22-point favorite for the game in Las Cruces. So, I'm going to get in here and say hello to a few different people. I see more people are in here. Detrilis, you might be back, my friend. Hey, maybe you are. Maybe you are. But I'm just going to tell you this. I started giving the U credit last year. I was like, man, they're flying under the radar. They're not really saying much and everything. And then everything fell apart. So Detrilis, no disrespect, but I'm going to believe it when I see it. And maybe. But after last year, I'm just going to, you know. I think the world of college football and the portal will eventually plateau, and I think we're starting to see it. Meaning teams are either really up on skill or they're really down on skill. And Detrilis is Florida State showing that right now. Of course, the jab towards the Seminoles. So, I mean, here's what I want to throw out about the transfer portal. When you have, over 3,000 players entering a portal, by the law of numbers, most of those players are not going to be good. You're going to have some really good players that enter the portal, and you lock them down early on. Notice that Riley Leonard no more than said he was leaving Duke, that he would, and then he was already, boom, at Notre Dame. Cam Ward, I've heard that, I don't know all the inner workings of this, so y'all please forgive me if I'm wrong, but I heard that Florida State really wanted Cam Ward, and then it looked like he might go to the NFL, or I don't know what was going to happen there. And Florida State ended up missing out on him. They went with DJ. We see how that's worked out. But by the way, a lot of people, it's low-hanging fruit to pick on Florida State and DJ. But if you've watched them play, it's way more than DJ. I mean, that defense is not good, and that offensive line is very questionable. But that defense got shoved around like a little brother by his big brother against Oregon State. And it's not just easy. It's easy to pick on DJ because of history and how publicized his transfer action and activity has been. But I'm telling you, Florida State as a whole needs help. And so, but yeah, the transfer portal has its set of players that are really good. So if Isaiah Bond leaves Alabama and he hits the portal, of course Texas is smart to go after the guy. Caleb Downs leaves Bama. All of a sudden, Ohio State goes in and says, we'll gladly take you there. Guys like that are really good players that you can bring in. Keon Coleman, Florida State won big there. Bringing him in year before last. Keon Coleman was the first pick of the second round of the draft. That guy was a great get out of Michigan State. Those types of players are players you want to get out of the transfer portal. And I don't believe that you need to go raid the portal and go get a bunch of guys. Go get the guys you need and then allow high school recruiting to supplement that. But for most of all, all right, you need to hire really good coaches at the position level and as your coordinators, because those guys, unless they get hired away, they are staying with your school before these players, during these players, and after these players' eligibility. And what we're seeing at Clemson right now, and I say this as a Clemson guy with a bunch of banners and helmet and a paw, and I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, you'd probably assume that it's of Death Valley or something. Clemson's problems started when they started hiring a bunch of former players in bulk on one side of the football that had never coached before or had very, very little coaching experience. It happened about the same time as the portal. A lot of people are getting this wrong. They're saying it's the portal. Folks, I'm telling you, if you do your investigation, you investigate it. I'm not discounting the portal at Clemson. I'm not. I am not. But please listen to me. I warned you about the Clemson-Georgia game for months and was the antichrist of Clemson football. I ended up being right about that. Back when Clemson still had Trevor Lawrence, I told you that something was wrong, especially the last season that Trevor and ETN was there. I told you something was wrong. Maybe I couldn't go up to a dry erase board and write it out and draw it out for you, but I can see it. I can see it. I just know there's a complacency was there. Guess what? They got their head ripped off against Ohio State. first time Ohio State beat Clemson, didn't even beat them, beat the trash out of them in the first round of the playoffs. And you can talk about who was coaching that day and who wasn't coaching that day. But to me, everything reared its ugly head when Clemson majorly reared its ugly head during that entire season after they won their championship. There was a complacency there, but they had so much talent, they didn't have to try. And I warned you then. Folks, I'm warning you now. The transfer portal does impact Clemson. And we could go out and get a few players here and there that could help. But the main problem in Clemson, South Carolina, is the poor coaching hires on the offensive side of the football that was made 5 years ago. From that point, moving in here, from about the time Jeff Scott left. And those coaches, some of them have been fired, but their influence is still here. The training or the lack thereof, its results are still here. Hear me, folks. I'm not going to just keep repeating myself, but I'm telling you, I warned you about Georgia. I warned you about the complacency that fell into Clemson's offense when we had the greatest talent we ever had at Clemson football in the same backfield at the same time. And I was told I was silly then. Well, I was right. I'm not being arrogant here. I'm telling you, I took trash for it. I'm coming back out with the receipts. I told you so there. I told you so about Georgia. I told you that we shouldn't have been jumping around like a bunch of goofy medicated people after barely beating a subpar Kentucky team in the Gator Bowl. I told you not to buy into all of that. Was I right? Yes. What else do I need to do to gain your trust, to make you believe that the number one issue in Clemson right now is the coaching hires on the offensive side of the football that started about right after Jeff Scott left? I know we got Matt Luke now. This is his first season. He's brilliant, but he can't turn water into wine. Garrett Riley, you know me, I don't want to come off personal or trash anyone here. I'm just not impressed, folks. Well, he's not this, he's not that. We were told that if he could do what he did at TCU with recruits, talent, that was not as good as Clemson, guess what he could do at Clemson? Which one is it, folks? It's time to stop your excuses. It's time to quit. It's time to put down those excuses. I can tell you what happened to Clemson football. It's those poor coaching hires on the offensive side of the football. A bunch of inexperienced guys who knew the culture, who knew the talking points, who was there when Clemson won in some form or capacity. That doesn't make you a good coach. One of my viewers commented on a video last week, and it was just so unbelievable. It was right after the Clemson loss to Georgia. It said, former players are just that. They're players. That doesn't mean that they're a good coach. Amen and amen. Go through this a little quicker. Way weary. I think FSU just misevaluated their portal. DJ is the gift that keeps on giving. Oh, Bo Weevil. Georgia Tech and Boston College both defeated the number 10 team in the nation in back-to-back weeks. Yeah, I know. SOTD, Hawaii's been the late night closer for years. You're actually true. Let's see. B Patho, you ain't lying. Hello, Brian. 114 degrees today. You're there in Arizona. Wow, that is hot. Wrecked GBO. Look at that. Look at that. Would Dabo fire Grisham? No. He's not going to. Oregon has never beat Boise State. 0-3, I think. Huh. Who are we playing next? We're playing Appalachian State this week, and the next week we're off. The week after that, we'll play NC State. Marcus has done a good job making sure the players he is getting from the portal are men of high character. I mean, he won with Riley. He really did. He won with Riley Leonard. And Bo Collins came out and did a pretty good job. I'm just wondering if Marcus Freeman is going to survive this. Is Nico the best quarterback I've ever seen? No. Trevor Lawrence is. Trevor Lawrence for sure. Now, I will tell you this. Deshaun Watson, I think, had a fight in him that was different. That, according to who you're playing, this is sacrilege in the Clemson community. But if you know, you know. There's certain games I'd rather have Deshaun Watson playing versus Trevor Lawrence. I know some of you are going to be like, yeah. I'm not talking about his NFL career. I'm not talking about off-the-field activities. I'm talking about when he was at Clemson. The guy beat South Carolina with a torn ACL with his leg taped up basically with a popsicle stick down the side. The guy had a fight that got weird. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence doesn't and didn't. I'm just saying there were times Watson, there's just something about Watson. Whew. All right, folks. Let me know what you got cooking for tomorrow. I'll try to go live tomorrow a couple of times, but I hope you'll drop a comment in the comment section. Pass this along to your friends who are not Clemson fans. Let them know, hey, this guy talks about more than Clemson. He talks about more than Clemson, so just let them know. And, yeah, I really appreciate everybody subscribing. I mean, y'all have just blown it out of the park. I hope that you will continue. Hope you'll continue to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, it is free, and I hope you'll join on a monthly basis. It's really, really cheap. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. College football, week 2. We're here, y'all. We're here. Did you feel that? I did. Feels great. Y'all take care of yourself. And as always, go Tigers.